So this happened to my friend and I almost 2 decades ago, but I'm only realizing the severity of it now that I remembered it. We were like 10, her and me 12, both girls. We snuck out in the middle of the night on a sleepover because we had the dumb urge to get some cola. During that time, the only store that was working nights was a small liquor store, 30-minute walk away from our house. It was next to a train station, which was a sketch place overall, full with drunks and the likes of that. But us being so young, we didn't know that and we just went. The walk to the place was fine, quiet, as we live in a small town. But shortly after we started walking back, we noticed a car going by, the only car at that time. At first, we didn't think much of it, but then we noticed it drive past us again, and a couple minutes later again. So we started feeling suspicious and started walking faster. We were walking on the main street, which was pretty lit, so I assumed now that the only reason nothing happened was because the person driving wanted to get us in a darker place. He took a turn towards a darker street once, trying to get ahead of us, but as we walked past it, he drove out of it and started following us. The moment we reached the street where we had to turn to her house, we took a sidewalk shortcut and we ran. The shortcut didn't allow the car to drive after us straight away, and instead he had us drive slightly straight, then right again into our street. Luckily, the shortcut existed because at that time, the street had no light, absolutely none. But we noticed that the car did actually start turning to our street, and that's how we confirmed it was actually following us. Good thing the house was very close by at the time. He turned to our street so he couldn't drive too fast enough. But my God, when I think of it now, I'm even more frightened than I was then, because I know what could have happened since I would understand it more now. We could have been kidnapped or molested or even killed, who knows? At that time, my friend and I forgot about the situation the very next day because we didn't realize what could have been. I wish I was smart enough back then to have remembered the plate numbers or anything. I hope that person didn't hurt anyone in that town. Now I feel lucky nothing happened to us, and my hometown now is in a completely different light for me since the realization. I'm going to tell you a story that happened when I was 17. This story still freaks me out so much, and I don't even know what happened that day. I would like to have your opinion on it. It was in November and my friend Jacob was going to have his 17th birthday. Me being a good friend, I proposed to him to sleep at my house and then go for a walk the next day with friends in the forest. He accepts, everything goes well. He sleeps at my place and the next day we leave with friends to the forest. After we reach the place, I realized that I forgot the keys to my house at home, and that therefore the door to my house was not locked. But hey, I tell myself we're in a town that few people frequent, the suburbs anyway. Day's going well and it's time to go home. I was stressed about knowing that my house had been robbed. Then in the end, I said to myself that there was little chance. My friend Jacob wanted to spend more time with me before I left for my studies, and so did he. So I accepted it. He still sleeps with me. We walk in and I see that my house is intact, but it was nice and wide open. So I walked around the house and noticed something. The cellar door, which I never opened by the way, was open, and there was white paper on the floor. I quickly realized that we had to call the police and check if there was anyone in the house. Me and Jacob decided to shout that if a stranger didn't come out, the police would take care of it. I was paralyzed with fear, and I feared that the stranger was coming. Bad news. The stranger who was in the cellar cried out, "You're not at your own home. Get out of here before I lock you up," like a straight maniac. Jacob and I got scared and we both ran out of the house. Luckily, the police were there. Thank God. And they took the guy in their own patrol car. Police found kitchen knives, an axe, iron chains, and a board. There was also a white paper laying on the floor. In it was written, "Behind you." I didn't understand what was written on it before, but now I know. The police told me later that the individual ran away from an asylum. Years later, I'm 25 and now I always check if I have my keys on me or not. Thank God that day didn't turn to worse. And to the man with the malicious intent, I hope we never meet again. I was reminded of him last week, almost after 5 years of not hearing from him. I saw him again last week, and I will try my best to summarize this nightmare. Some things to know which are important to the story. It happened in 2017, and during that time we went a whole year without having neighbors on either side. So basically, we're cramped between two empty houses. The streetlight on our lot had been broken, and despite multiple reports to the council to fix it, nobody did. One evening, my family went out for groceries and I was left home alone. The gate was still wide open when they left. I used it back then because I had rabbits that I would let out to play and let them back in. So we left it open. The sun was already setting by the time I went out to feed the rabbits and then lock the gate. It was literally 5 minutes after I locked the gate that someone was outside. Since the sun was already low in the horizon and the streetlight broken, I can barely see his face. He was outside with a van shouting for my attention. He said something about his company sending him over to do some property surveillance. It was suspicious, alright, so I ignored him and went inside. Later on, when the night got dark, my family still hadn't returned. I was inside watching some cartoon when I heard some commotion outside. I didn't directly look at it, but I stole some glances and saw someone outside, like literally in front of my gate. He was shouting for my attention again, and guess who it was? Yup, the guy from before. I recognized his voice and again paid him no attention. After a seemingly long few minutes, it got quiet outside. I took another peek outside and holy crap, he was attempting to climb into my house. I was so shocked that I couldn't move. But luckily at that time we had a dog named Buck who passed away not long after. Bless his soul. He was probably napping in one of his hiding spots and sensed some presence. As soon as the guy saw Buck coming at him, he stopped climbing and rode away on his bike. No more van, that was that. But ever since then I kept seeing him still. How do I know it was him when I can't even see his face in the first place? Well, because after that particular incident, every now and then there was always someone hanging literally outside a gate with his bike. He was always making weird noises too, like noises that sounded like smacking your lips together. And every time I reported it to my dad, the guy would always ride away as soon as he saw my dad checking. One time I was at the backyard collecting my laundry. If you stand on the left side of my gate but facing in, you can see the area in our backyard where we wash and dry out laundry. And he was standing right there, making those weird noises again, which drew my attention. I yelled for my dad again, and once he saw my dad, he booked it again out of there. This had been going for almost a month. While he hadn't actually posed a threat, it was enough for me to feel uncomfortable and unsafe to even go out at the night by myself. Oh, but it got worse. My room is on the other side of the house, so basically I have a window that faces the front of the house. But my room is situated on the right side of the house, if you're looking at my house. So from my point of view, I see the overgrown bushes covering the fence. If I peek my head out the window and to look right, I can clearly see the gate. Alright, here's where it gets quite scary. One night I was in my room doing some work on my desk. The window was to my left and I left it open as I've always liked the night breeze. I don't remember how long I was working for, but then all of a sudden I felt this dread washing over me. It's like I wasn't safe in the comfort of my room anymore. Like I was being watched. I looked out the window and tried to see in the dark, and there he was. I knew it was him. Somehow he managed to squeeze in the bushes and was hanging onto the fence. He saw me. I could feel him smiling at me. And then he made those awful lip-smacking sounds again. Nope. I booked it the hell out of my room. Again, I reported it to my dad, and again he rode out of there before we can catch him in the act. Sometimes my dad and sisters thought I was imagining stuff because when they kept their eyes outside, they saw nothing. But I was the one who saw him every single time. I know for a fact that he's real. He's real, and it's the same person every time. This continued on for another month or two. He'd come, saw me, and ride away before my dad and sister can get a good look at him. And then one day he stopped coming, and I haven't seen and heard from him again. That was until last week. I was home alone again, and my sister was caught up at work. My dad left to pick up my brother from his workplace. I was in the living room watching TV when I heard that awfully familiar lip-smacking sound. At this point, the street light is still broken. We installed some fence light, but this guy hid in the dark where the light was too faint to reach. He was out there with his bike again. Only this time I heard him giggle. I've never heard him giggle before. And no, this isn't a cute kind of giggle. It sounded malicious. I tried my hardest to ignore him and not pay him any attention, but he was still out there making these noises. Over a year ago, we got a new dog, Gibbs. He was a rescued stray. He must have heard him too. As soon as the guy saw Gibbs coming at him, he rode away again, and that was last week. 5 years ago, he terrified me to the point where I was so afraid of being outside on my own at night.
even if it was just to pick up some laundry. Sometimes at night I can't sleep without checking every corner in my house, and for a short period I slept with the lights on. And even though he didn't exactly do anything physically threatening, him playing psycho tricks over the long period is enough for me. And the worst thing is, just when he was finally out of my head, he came back, worse than ever. I've never ever seen his face, but I think he's seen mine. I really hope I never have to see his face again. Please, let's not meet ever again.
Last December, I was visiting my family down in Florida. We spent some time in Treasure Island. My brother and I took my dog down the beach at 2 a.m. to play some fetch and drink. I know it's weird hanging out at this hour, but cut us some slack. Anyways, back to the story. If you walk along the water, you have a few restaurants and bars that line the beach. This part is important for later on in the story. Out of nowhere, we see someone walking pretty quickly in our direction from over there, and a few moments later we can make out that they're being followed. My dog is arguably pretty well trained, and I've never once had her run off without permission, and never once she had not returned instantly when called. But that changed that night. Our dog was about 5 feet from me. I saw her hackles shoot up and I went to grab her collar, but she took off in a full sprint, making some truly terrifying barking and growling sounds. We obviously took off after her. Our dog reached the first person, which was a woman, and stopped between the woman and a group of people behind her, which were composed of 3 men. She was barking, growling, and lunging. I finally caught up and put her on a leash. She never reacted in that matter, so it was scary. The group following the woman ended up being 3 men that were probably in their early 30s. When my dog arrived, they started booking it in the other direction. I turned around and the person being followed was a young woman around my age. We asked if she was okay and she broke down in tears and collapsed into my brother. My dog wanted to show her some love too. She was far too overwhelmed to talk, so she got into her phone and rang her friend's number to have us talk to her. We were able to figure out where she was staying, and we walked her back to her hotel where we met up with her friends, and we all exchanged numbers to talk at a later time. Alright, here's where we learned her story. The next day we all got together where we learned she had gone out for a walk on the beach, stopped for a drink at the bar, drank a bit, and then just wasn't feeling right. So she left the bar and soon noticed 3 men left after her. She had been walking for about a mile at that point, terrified and slowly getting more and more effed up. She doesn't remember much about that night, and we knew she was probably on something, but we had no clue she had been drugged. We became friends now, and we're all gonna meet up for spring break when we're all back in Florida. I've never been more proud of my dog and more grateful that we were in the right place at the right time. I hate thinking about what could have happened to those 3 men. Let's not meet again.